Twitter blew up.
More offensive than a presidential tweet.
Russia, China, Japan, Mexico, all countries will respect us far more than they do under past administrations.
PC Radio with Stu and Rich. Mojo 50 Radio.
And broadcasting live on the OpsLens Network. Make sure to get over there. OpsLens.com. That's OPSLENS. Make sure that you download the OpsLens app. Richard, quite possibly one of the most technologically advanced applications I've ever seen, and of course, we're just only making it better. I mean, we're just adding to the value of this thing exponentially. It's since the inception of this show on the OpsLens Network, I don't know that anybody has gone away, which is a good thing. Also, I think that we were responsible for crashing it a few times, just because of the surge of immediate downloads. Every time I talk about it, we have to be very careful because these people, these million people that are listening over on iHeartRadio, they're like, man. The OpsLens app, that sounds great. I could see these two clowns rather than just listening to them. I can watch them do a radio show, which, by the way, is very entertaining. It's extremely entertaining to watch people read their notes and drink their coffee and talk about complete nonsensical BS for an entire hour every afternoon. Welcome aboard to our iHeart listeners, Mojo 50 Radio, OpsLens, and everywhere in the social media hemisphere, wherever you're still allowed to see us every single weekday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And yesterday, Richard, we got into a little bit of a heated talk about racism in the second half of our show. I was seeing that you were taking some flack about that on social media. Come on, man, you're black. You ought to know what's going on in this country. You got to feel it, don't you? I mean, how can you really agree with this guy? This guy's a racist.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, everybody's got an opinion, right? They're like assholes. Everyone's got one,
and they all stink.
They do. They all stink. And, I don't claim to be any kind of political hack or any kind of expert. I leave that to you and people that are above my pay grade.
Well, and I'm certainly not an expert either. Listen, I'm an expert in the field of fugitive apprehension. And I know this. I'm very concerned about the things that I see, and I'm becoming more studied on these things. And if I want to know the answer to something, I go find 3 to 5 different sources. And, you try to piece together what's real and what's lies. It's really hard to do in today's media climate, by the way, because as a matter of fact, in one of our conservative groups on Facebook, I know that you're a member of it. It's the Woodbury Conservatives, I believe. And yep. I just saw this morning that there was something that was fact-checked in there as likely untrue. And it was removed from Facebook. The words that Facebook independent fact checkers used was likely untrue.
Weird.
This is, even though there was a virologist from Wuhan and from China who said, no, unequivocally, this thing was absolutely 100%, and wait, I better watch it here, or we're going to get doxxed and deleted and banned and all kinds of different stuff. But this virologist has contradictory information to what public medical health officials are telling you. Just follow the money, folks. That's all I can say. Follow the money, and you'll find where the corruption lies. But I didn't claim that you were an expert, Rich, and everybody knows that. But you're a free-thinking American, and I think that you're entitled to your own opinion. And for somebody to tell you that you're outside of your mind, or that you should be punched in the face based on your opinions of free thinking, only shows the minuscule size of the brain of the person doing that talking.
Well, listen, bro, if every time that somebody told me I needed to be punched in the face for my opinions or anything like that, I wouldn't have a face. My nose would be gone. And, I look at things like this. What makes sense to me, right? And so because we have this platform and we have this ability to be on here every day, and whether 12 people listen or 10 million people listen, my opinions and the way I see things are going to stay the same.
Good.
And I have always, as you know, and so have you, always welcomed anybody to have an intelligent conversation. But what really drives me nuts is when you try to initiate and facilitate some intelligent conversation on any given topic, like systemic racism, it doesn't seem like the people who have a difference of opinion than me are able or willing to have that talk. Either they get too emotional or they don't know any facts.
Right. And maybe we don't know a lot of facts either, which is why we
Maybe
talk
not.
to people that are, that are very knowledgeable. So today, without further ado, I'd like to bring in the guy that we're talking here to, Manny Alicandro. He is a former, or excuse me, not a former, he is a New York attorney with broad expertise in securities, governance, and litigation. He's a former candidate, that's what I meant to say, for public office in New York. He's worked in diverse leadership roles in consulting, management, banking, and as a frequent industry speaker, panelist, webcaster, and published author. He's also the host of Real and Unfiltered. We're network pals. We're network brothers on the OpsLens Network. Manny, welcome to PC Radio, and thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We were talking about having you on, and I was talking to Ron Hammond over at OpsLens, and when we started talking 2020 election stuff, he was like, you really should talk to Manny because he knows the ins and outs of the legality parts of what might transpire with these 2020 elections. And so I guess my question to you would be, obviously the thing that's trending and I think it's undisputedly become, without question, the most important part of this election now, the most important issue and the focus is going to be on the replacement for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Is this thing going to be, is there going to be a new justice nominated, and will the Senate vote on this thing before November 3rd, Manny?
Great questions. I think the answer to both questions is yes. Essentially, from what I'm hearing, Trump is going to formally nominate a justice on Saturday, sometime in the afternoon, and it seems like the Senate will take a vote on this nomination, on this nominee, and hopefully confirm before the November 3rd election. So this has come from two sources, both Mitch McConnell, who's obviously the Senate Majority Leader, and the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham.
And they're rioting outside of their homes right now, too, by the way.
Lindsey Graham said there's the votes, and Mitt Romney confirmed yesterday that he would vote in favor of the nominee. So it seems like we have the votes in terms of there's 53 Republican senators. Lisa Murkowski said no already, as did Susan Collins. And the other question was Mitt Romney. He said he would vote in favor. So assuming that no one else breaks rank, no other Republicans break rank, we will have the 51 votes. This timeline could occur within a reasonable, very quickly period of time, effectively. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was nominated and confirmed within 50 days. And that was not a situation where time is of the essence. Clearly, time is of the essence here. We need this new justice confirmed, nominated and confirmed as quickly as possible, because clearly the results of the November 3rd election could be in dispute, and we do not want a Supreme Court where there's 8 justices.
Talk about that a little bit, Manny. You said that you said that the results could be in dispute. By that, what do you mean?
So every news outlet's covering this, and the mainstream media is covering this nonstop. And effectively, there's a concern that this is a very close election. If you look at the polls, we're very much within the margin of error. Popular vote doesn't count in a presidential election. It's the Electoral College. And the question's going to be, who's voting and how are they voting? So the concern right now is potentially that President Trump will win the Electoral College, or the appearance of the Electoral College, on November 3rd. So there will be this situation where it appears that President Trump wins re-election. But if Biden does not concede, and that's been reported, Hillary Clinton already urged Biden to not concede, because most of the voting this year is through paper or mail-in ballots. Those mail-in ballots will be subject to state law, meaning that some ballots will be accepted for up to 14 days after the election on November 3rd, meaning ballots will still be accepted up to November 17th. And there will absolutely be disputes that have to go to court to determine if the ballots will be accepted or not, based upon postmarks, based upon signatures, based upon if that voter is indeed registered to vote. So you're going to have the situation that occurred in Florida, which was one state in a couple of counties and municipalities in Florida that took 34 days to resolve in the year 2000. That will be on steroids in 2020 because it'll be maybe 10 states, these swing states that are in dispute about who won the elections. We will not know on November 3rd. So these issues will go to the courts, respectively, within those states, and then roll up to the U.S. Supreme Court, as it did in the year 2000. The Supreme Court in the year 2000 determined what the state of Florida needed to do with regard to the recount, and obviously we know the outcome that George W. Bush won. But
what a scam! What a scam that is, man. I mean, if we, like Stu and I just talked about, we don't claim to be experts, and Manny, I don't know if you claim to be an expert, but I can say that, just these three guys who can see the writing on the wall about these mail-in ballots. What a shit show that it's going to be. And it's like everybody knows it's coming. We know that it's going to be a shit show, and there's going to be recounts, and there's going to be contested ballots, and we're going to have to go to court, and we're going to have to do all these things. Why would we even let this happen is beyond me. We already know that it's stupid. It's going to be really stupid. I don't see the point.
Right. You're absolutely right. Because as everything has become politicized today, clearly voting is political in terms of which side you vote for, but the process to vote, the process in which you go to vote has become politicized.
You're not a real Democrat if you don't vote by mail.
Right.
And you're not really a MAGA guy. You're not really a Trump supporter if you don't go to the polls and vote. And the whole notion that the voting process is unsafe due to the COVID-19 pandemic is completely fabricated and then manufactured and then perpetuated by the mainstream media. If I can go sit in a subway car in New York City with hundreds of other people wearing my mask and socially distancing, then what environment, Manny, is more safe than me going inside of a private polling booth and pulling the curtain alone where nobody else is supposed to be anywhere near me and pulling that lever for Donald J. Trump?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about voting is the perfect use case for social distancing. You vote
right.
by yourself in a booth. You are more than 6 feet away. Right? So why can't you set up a process where people queue up in line and they could be socially distant, wear masks, do whatever, and then when you vote in your booth, in an isolated booth, totally social distance, and move on. These same people that are clamoring to reopen America, to reopen different aspects of different businesses in each state, for some reason, are petrified of the COVID virus insofar as that they will catch COVID by voting in person. It makes absolutely no sense. You're absolutely right. We know what is going to happen. In the year 2000, let me be clear, the 34 days that we had to wait to determine who won the 2000 election, those were votes by people made in person. The hanging chad, there was a dimple on the ballot. Imagine introducing the complexity of paper ballots, mail-in ballots, absentee ballots on top of that. We will be potentially in a situation where we have a constitutional crisis, meaning that we will not know as a country who the president of the United States is for a long time.
It's so ridiculous, Manny. If I can go to Walmart to pick up some coffee creamer for my wife and stand next to the 40-year-old man who's eating his effing boogers, I can certainly go to a polling station and vote for whoever it is I see fit. So
I did that for booger eating. I'm going to try not to talk about that on the program. Manny, if we have the constitutional crisis, and if we don't know who the president is going to be on November 3rd, how long after the election do you think it's going to be that this is decided, and what kind of reaction is there going to be in the streets? I mean, we've already seen autonomous zones, which I'm going to get into tomorrow really in depth in this program. I mean, they're now being ignored by the media since Portland kind of semi-halfway went in there and did something about it. But what's going to happen both judicially and inside of the government as far as the process is concerned? And then what do you anticipate the reaction is going to be by the public?
Great questions. I think firstly that our markets, our stock market, the valuation of the U.S. dollar could be roiled. Already the chief economist at Goldman has already spoken about this. So people in terms of the investment community are already hedging November into December of 2020, which has been an interesting year nonetheless with regard to volatility in the market. So Wall Street is already preparing for this uncertainty. That's on the financial side. In terms of the streets, I feel that there's going to be a tremendous amount of civil unrest that people are going to take to the streets. We are not going to know. The mainstream media will not tell us who won the election. They won't call it, even though it'll be very clear that it appears that Donald Trump will win by a large number of electoral votes in terms of the Electoral College. What does this all mean? This means potentially that Nancy Pelosi could be the president of the United States. This happened in 1800. Thomas Jefferson, in terms of Thomas Jefferson, was elected based upon the delegation of the states. So what could happen is if we have this uncertainty in terms of who wins, it could fall upon the state delegations to have to vote on their own, independent of the state's election results. So your vote, effectively, talking about disenfranchisement, your vote will not count potentially.
Richard, I know you want to get in here. I just have one final, just a quick thing on that. So if Nancy Pelosi becomes the president, who then would be the vice president?
I think it's the minority leader.
It could be. It could be. It could be the majority leader or the president of the Senate.
Okay, we were talking about that
how
yesterday.
The election turns out, but effectively, what I'm saying is that the state delegations will vote, and the candidate will need 26 states to win the 26 states. So your vote on November 3rd, whether in person or by mail, because of all the shenanigans with this mail-in voting, absentee ballots that we are creating, you're absolutely right, the lock boxes and utilization of the postal service and all this nonsense, you cannot vote late. Let's say I go to vote in person on November 4th. There's no poll site. It's closed.
Right.
The circus left town. But why can I vote by paper ballot up until November 17th? It's preposterous. They have early voting in many states. We need to get our act together and go to vote. I mean, people don't have time to vote. Most states have early voting literally 2 weeks before Election Day. Early voting starts. So in October, you can vote. We can't get that right. I mean, this is ridiculous. We had a situation in New York in a primary earlier this year for Carolyn Maloney, who's one of our congresswomen. She was in a very close primary election, and the results could not be determined on primary night. And obviously, this was in June during when we had big lockdowns, major lockdowns in New York for COVID, and there was a heightened concern about COVID, much different than where we are today. Okay, the infection rate was up, the fatalities were up. We're very low right now in the United States, in particular in New York. They had to go to court. Both candidates lawyered up, of course. They had to go to a federal court, and they determined which absentee ballots, which mail-in ballots counted and which didn't. A lot of ballots were tossed. What about if some postal carrier, and I have a lot of respect for our postal service and our letter carriers, but what happens if mail isn't picked up timely, or mail is lost, or mail is discarded in terms of ballots? Or
like the person we saw intentionally going to a dumpster and just dumping the whole mail carton right in it. Richard, right. I know you wanted to get in here.
I was very intently listening, but I mean, to your point, Manny, we had a primary here in Minnesota too earlier this year. And from what I recall, and I could be wrong about this, but it seemed like everyone was going to the polling stations, because you see everyone on Facebook with their I voted stickers and their little videos of them leaving the polling station. So if we can go to a polling station to vote for a primary, we sure as hell can go to vote for the president of the United States of America.
Agreed.
It's
absolutely, and we need to urge our friends. We need to urge people in our audience to go vote in person and make sure they feel safe. Wear a mask. Do what you need to do to feel safe, but urge your local boards of elections. See, the problem here is that although it's a federal election and a presidential election, all of everything I'm talking about is mandated by state law. So the states have the ability to do this. You have a Democratic governor in Minnesota. We have a Democratic governor in New York. Unfortunately, our voting processes, I mentioned earlier, have become politicized. So for some reason, there's this extreme paranoia and creation of paranoia. The fear is gripping. We are creating this fearful environment where if you vote in person, you will potentially contact COVID. Therefore, you must vote by mail. Now, if that's the case, fine. I don't agree with it, but make it simple. Make it transparent. Make it the type of voting process that is not subject and open to fraud.
How much of this do you think has to do with like these pseudo aristocrats pushing their narrative through Hollywood and through people like Cardi B with these huge platforms? I mean, so for example, I can go turn on the mainstream media. I'm going to hear the same regurgitated talking points ad nauseum just over and over again. But it seems to me that the influence of people like our platform here, or the Fox News Channel, or even CNN, has become completely diminished by people with 10, 20, 30, 40 million Twitter followers who just can get any message out at any time that they want to, and they're perpetuating this narrative for that particular side of the aisle. And how much influence do you think that's actually having on the American voter?
That's absolutely true, and it has a tremendous amount of influence. These social media influencers, Cardi B, for example, she's got close to 15 million Twitter followers.
Insane.
She actually does commercials in New York for people to complete the census, because people don't want to fill out the census. I don't know why, but she's so influential that she's doing commercials to do the census for them. She will probably do commercials to vote.
She's manufactured. She's like the the NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys, the Lou Pearlman days, where public figures were manufactured. We're seeing that, and we're seeing that in politics. It's my opinion that that's what Barack Obama was, and I don't know if you share this opinion. You're in New York. What about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Absolutely spot on analysis. She is completely part of this factory manufactured process where the powers that be wanted a particular candidate that fit their mold and that fit their needs. And she is very effective. Again, she's got a big social media influence. She really has no idea what she's saying. If you listen to her when she speaks, you just need to listen to her, twice, and you realize she has no idea what she's talking about. She has talking points that are given to her. She gets the memo, and she makes sure that all the boxes are checked. She actually had a press conference the other day with Chuck Schumer about filling Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. Now, as we know, according to our Constitution, the House has nothing to do with confirming Supreme Court justices. That is exclusively up to the Senate. Why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is giving a press conference with our senior senator in New York is because she has that kind of influence in terms of the youth vote, in terms of the socialist vote. There's a big socialist movement. You guys are in Minnesota. You see this.
Yeah.
There's a big socialist movement that has taken over this country, not is taken. I'm saying it has taken over this country. It is cool to be a socialist. It is cool to be. There's this young girl. She goes to Rice University. She was busted a couple of weeks ago for being part of this group that looted in New York City. They caused $100,000 in damage in New York City. She goes to Rice University. She lives on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Her father is affiliated, I think he's a psychiatrist, affiliated with Columbia University. Her mother's very influential. And they have a weekend house in Litchfield County, Connecticut, which is a very expensive zip code. She's out in the streets protesting. She's out in the streets looting. She's 20 years old. Okay? I don't even think she knows
Manny,
what she's doing or why she's doing it.
This whole conversation really makes me appreciate a whole lot more these platforms that we have, like the OpsLens Network and Mojo, because like you guys said, or Stu said, things are regurgitated all day on mainstream media. There's not any media outlet that is talking about these things that are on a level where, the guy who lives across the street from me can understand. And I think that we get people to think quite a bit about what's really happening around here. It's I really am grateful that we decided to do this show, Stu.
I'm up against a hard break. Manny Alicandro, he's a New York attorney with broad expertise in securities, governance, and litigation. He's the host of Real and Unfiltered on OpsLens. We've agreed to start writing together, too. We're going to start writing stuff on OpsLens, so make sure that you go over there and check that out. Manny,
Oh, boy.
always great to have you, and I can't wait to have you again. First time on the program, and I just can't wait to do it again. More
Thanks,
PC
guys.
Radio coming up right
Thank
after
you.
this. Don't go anywhere. My name is Stu. That's Rich. Stick around.
We will force votes.
We will not stop.
Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f?
Impeachment.
This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
Hey, it's Stu Peters for Johnson Jewelers, located in Woodbury, Minnesota, but more importantly, located online worldwide at johnsonjewelers.com. Why is that important to you? Well, because if you have been left behind or you have discovered a family heirloom or something that's important to you, maybe it's grandma's birthstone, or maybe it's a pendant or a family crest, maybe it's grandpa's ring, but it doesn't quite fit you, or maybe it needs to be restored, or you see something completely different in mind. Why shove that thing in a safety deposit box? Why put it aside or put it in a shadow box or just break it out every once in a while to show the grandkids? Instead, you could wear that with a custom piece of jewelry designed for you, specifically by johnsonjewelers.com. A quick visit to the website, a couple of emails exchanged, and maybe a few phone calls, and you will have that custom piece of jewelry that means something for you. Visit them online, worldwide, johnsonjewelers.com, johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
The Democrats are lousy politicians. They really are. Horrible policies, open borders, crime is fine.
Welcome to the future, bitches.
They wake up every morning to stars, stripes, guns, and carbon emissions. Hey, who farted? Stu and Rich. Patriotically Correct Radio.
I think we know the answer to that one. Welcome back to the second segment of the Patriotically Correct Radio Show. My name is Stu Peters. That's Richard Leonard. Very interesting conversation with Manny Alicandro in the first half of today's show. Make sure that you get over to the OpsLens Network and check out his show. He's got such an interesting perspective on so many things. I mean, honestly, I could have had him here for 4 hours, and if not for the benefit of anybody else, just for my own. He seems to be so knowledgeable. He ran for public office. He was actually going to run to be the Attorney General of the state of New York. And in a conversation off the air, we talked about that as well as a lot of other things. He was telling me after we started talking about Cardi B and social media influence and having all of these followers. Apparently, Cardi B was on a beach somewhere, and there was some guy wearing a MAGA hat. And of course, Cardi B and her people, I think it was her sister, started calling him a racist and all these other things. And it took like one tweet from Cardi B's people, not even her, I don't think. I think it was her and maybe her sister. It took one tweet, some video, they went live on Twitter, and all of a sudden, I mean, there was just thousands of people ready to whoop this guy's ass and just there on the scene. And it's insane the amount of influence that is had with this social media thing. And apparently now this guy, according to Alicandro, is suing Cardi B and her sister for defamation of character and slander and stuff like that.
Good. He should. I know we talk about it a lot on this show, Stu, but this whole idea of the silent majority and these folks that just want to be left alone is gonna, I think it's gonna get to a point where they're gonna call the bluff is gonna be called, right? Well, where's this silent majority you guys always talk about, and they ain't gonna do shit, blah 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 blah. Well, it's stuff like that. I think that is gonna trigger, because I think there's a lot of people that, although disagree with the law enforcement BS that's going on and all this other stuff, but things like that, you're gonna hassle me for wearing a hat, or these videos of these young kids sneaking up behind people and hitting them in the side of the head with bricks and knocking them out in the middle of the street. All these things are going to really come to a head, and it's going to be just super, super ugly.
Yeah. I don't have any question about that. And when you said call the bluff, that brings me to a whole nother thought. Excuse me. Boy, I apologize for that. for decades,
some water.
The Republicans have failed to call the bluff of the Democrats. That has just been a thing. We can tear down your statues and monuments, but you won't tear down ours. You can set up autonomous zones in cities, but we will protest peacefully. When was the last time that you ever saw a violent mob of Trump supporters at a rally just break out in burning and looting? It just doesn't happen. The only violence that happens at these Trump rallies is that which is brought by Antifa, the ISIS for pussies, and by Black Lives Matter terrorist mobs. That's the only people that bring violence. Trump supporters, and by the way, I'm not a torch carrier for everything Donald Trump, but I do support him with the majority of his policies and with the majority of his actions that he has been, by the way, doing all by himself. But now the new bluff that needs to be called is this packing of the Supreme Court. Elizabeth Warren is talking about it. Bernie Sanders is talking about it. Barack Obama has talked about it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about it. Chuck Schumer is talking about it. Joe Biden won't answer the question. Kamala Harris won't answer the question. And the reason why they won't answer the question when they're confronted by people like Peter Doocy from Fox News Channel is because he ran right up to Kamala Harris and said, should Democrats pack the court? And she walked right up to him. And as soon as she realized who he was, what network he was with, she hightailed it out of there and completely ignored the question. So what I say is that we do call the bluff. We reelect Donald Trump as the president. We keep the Senate. We take back the House, and then we pack that court. If you want to play these dirty games, then we got to play them back. And by the way, to stoop to the level that you're talking about, and I'm not saying that you talk at low levels, but what I'm saying is you're talking about physical violence in the streets and bricks and burning and attacking people for wearing MAGA attire and stuff like that. I'm telling you, when that bluff gets called, those that are on the right side of history are not going to have any issue. And because we all know that the police have become essentially useless. And people are going to start taking this stuff up on their own, Richard. It's going to get very ugly. We didn't get too deep in depth with Manny Alicandro about the violence and the unrest that's going to happen. He has no doubt articulated that he believes that that's going to happen. We said that yesterday when we were talking on the show, and we were kind of giving a generalized timeline of events that's going to happen up leading to November 3rd, and then on that day, and then after. Like, for example, will the president federalize the National Guard on Election Day? Why hasn't he done it already? Is it a political move? Is he trying to save face? Does he feel like everybody will say, oh, the president is militarizing our police? Well, what is the difference, Richard? We already trust police to enforce the law on our streets. What's the difference if they're local police, county police, state police, or federal police? There is no difference. And so all these people that are screaming that he's a radical or that he's a tyrant or that he's a dictator by federalizing police, that's just not true. Because when local governments, when local people, Department of Public Safety here in Minnesota, the governor, Tim Walz, the mayor of that city, Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, the police chief, Medaria Arredondo, who there's a complete lack of leadership and intentional decisions, calculated choices being made that are allowing things to happen on the streets of Minneapolis that put not only the cops in danger, but the very citizens that these activist groups claim that they have an interest in, i.e. black people. There is nobody that's suffering more at the hands of this lawlessness than African American communities, because we all know that violence already plagues the black community. And now the police are not even allowed to respond.
Well, I don't know that they're not allowed. They're not able. Well, and I guess it depends on where you're at. But in places like Minneapolis, and we talked to some cops last week while having a coffee or whatever, there just isn't cops to do it. Cops are quitting. They're retiring. They're getting out. I mean, we personally know one guy who just said, screw it, man, I'm done with this. And he had 3, 4, 5 years on the department. Just going to go for a career change, take care of my family, and live in peace.
Well, if it's the guy that we're talking about, he'd been on for like 8 years. And
still,
yeah, I mean, but he had his whole career ahead of him essentially. And what we're looking at on the screen here, if you're viewing us on social media, is this autonomous zone that has been, excuse me, my goodness, I need to drink some water here, has been set up in Minneapolis. And this is, Richard, I know that you said that you don't know that they're allowed to go or that they're unwilling to go, but they don't feel safe being here. No. Every time the police respond here, whether it's with EMS or whether it's to assist somebody who's in some kind of trouble or no matter what it is, they're confronted by a large, angry crowd of people that then start threatening them and things like that. I mean, they can't be here to do their job, and they've been writing internal memos to command staff at the Minneapolis Police Department saying, we cannot be in this zone. We can't be here. We can't police here. And that's a really dangerous thought, Richard.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, just the other day, we heard it on the radio. They were assaulting firefighters, for Christ's sake. And I think that it's super sad that we've even got to this point. And maybe I'm extremely ignorant to what's been going on in our country for years and years.
Maybe.
But I mean, this is not how our founding fathers envisioned our society to be. I mean, like, this is coming to us. It's going to come to a civil war maybe. And it makes me very, very nervous for my 15-year-old kids who are just about ready to cut bait and fly from the nest and go start their own lives. And people like you, Stu, who have young kids, they have to all grow up in this bullshit. And it's extremely frustrating and disconcerting.
It's called the Free State of George Floyd. It's happening in a 4-block area in Minneapolis. And so there was a local television station here the other day that did a special on this. And I haven't clipped that down. I will do that. I think if you go to YouTube or Bing or any search results that you want to use, you click on videos of the Minneapolis Autonomous Zone, you'll see that special report. I believe it was KSTP that did it, Channel 5. So if you want to take a look at that. But the report was really interesting, Richard, because what the reporter found and what they're being told are two totally different things. Big surprise there. Weird. What the reporter found and uncovered a story about a guy with an auto shop. I don't know if it was auto body or auto parts or auto service, but the guy has an auto shop there, and the streets are barricaded. You can't get in there. You can't just walk into this zone. If it's every Tom, Dick, or Harry on the street, Joe Blow can't just go walking down the street and enter this zone without being confronted and questioned and possibly assaulted. And what's going on here is that this criminal goes in, by the way, a white guy, goes into this auto shop and tells the owner, we want money from you and we want it every single day or you're going to be met with violence and there will be repercussions if you don't pay us every single day a portion of your proceeds. Well, hold on, you asshole. What proceeds? This guy's not allowed to do his business. He's an auto shop. Right. You can't drive a car in here. So he's effectively shut down. What do the police owe him if you want to talk about reparations? Now, here's a guy who's an immigrant, a foreign national who has since become a citizen of the United States. He's got the American dream that he is absolutely 100% pursuing. I mean, he's the quintessential example of somebody who's trying to take advantage of the equality offered by the United States and the Constitution and all of the founding documents that make us the greatest nation on the face of the planet without dispute. And he can't even do that. And his question was, is this America? I mean, look around here. Is this really America? The Free State of George Floyd? Come on.
Super upsetting. No, this is not America. This is not what you were promised when you did the right thing to become an immigrant and work and live freely in and about this society. All these people that hate America and hate the cops and hate this and hate that, pack your shit and get the hell out. I'll certainly come help you move. And if some of your shit gets burned, I'm sorry, but this is not. No, to answer your question, no, this is not America. This is not what it's supposed to be.
Well,
not at all.
So the special report, and going back to that, this guy then was talking to some community organizing, whatever she is, and she's like, this is just not true. The cops are politicizing their reports internally so that they can have a false narrative against us down here. Well, I don't know about that, because there's video evidence of this guy beating the crap out of this guy on multiple occasions, going back with an assault rifle, going back with a baseball bat before police were finally able to identify who he was and then arrested him outside of said autonomous zone. When they figured out who the guy was, he has since been booked and charged with multiple felony counts, and I presume that he's got a very high bail, and I hope that if he runs, that we're charged with the task of going to find him, and that's just a personal deal. But and then, on top of that, there's a city official that wrote, no, there's no autonomous zone in the city of Minneapolis. There's no autonomous zone down by 38th in Chicago. There's no autonomous zone anywhere in Minneapolis. Well, we're looking at it right here. How do city officials get off saying that this doesn't exist? It's here right in front of our faces.
They must have went to City Hall and pulled the permit for a public event.
Well, I mean, to the credit of whoever wrote the memo, the autonomous zone has been since made an autonomous zone. The reason that it originally became barricaded was to protect the sanctity of what was, to protect it from being burned and looted and robbed and stuff like that. But then what you have is the free state of George Floyd now becomes a hideout for criminals. I guess, you can't be a criminal if the state's not going to charge you. And in the free state of George Floyd, who's the prosecutor? Who's the police? Who's the attorney general? Who's the governor? You have to believe that there's some sort of a hierarchy being set up here, which becomes a very dangerous situation. And it's my opinion that we haven't heard about this in the mainstream media because it has become not the sex of the day. Since Portland was kind of retaken back, this is no longer news. And the people of Minneapolis, the citizens of Minneapolis, the business owners of Minneapolis can't go to their own homes, can't leave their own homes. There's extortion going on here. They're making citizens pay to get out of their own alleyways so that they can get to work before they can then go to work hard, and return home. And they return home to look out the windows and see this crap going on in their own neighborhood. Well, I'm sorry, man, but it's time for these citizens to take their streets back because the cops aren't going to do it.
Yes, you're right. The question is, do any of them have the testicular fortitude to do so? Another question I have for you, Stu. How many warrants do you think are in the free state of George Floyd?
Oh, come on. I think you could throw a rock and the likelihood of hitting somebody without a warrant would be the real challenge. It's just,
good point.
This is a lawless community, and this is a direct reflection on weak and poor or completely lack of leadership. Now, the former sheriff of Hennepin County, Rich Stanek, who is now a law enforcement consultant, was on TV as part of this documentary or part of this special report, and he was being interviewed, and he said, I feel like the chief has done a really good job of navigating this whole situation, and he's stuck between the citizens and the mayor's office, and he's done a really good job of navigating this. Bullshit. There's been no leadership out of that command staff. And what this police chief needs to do is say, I'm not going to allow this. My cops are going down there today. They're taking this autonomous zone down. They're taking these barricades down, and they are going to enforce the rule of law. And if I don't have enough cops here, then I'm going to ask for mutual aid from Hennepin County, where, by the way, there's a real sheriff in charge now who does not play around and will enforce the law. And we're going to take these barricades down, and we're going to ask for support from all these other agencies, including the State Patrol and Parole and Probation, or the DOC fugitive guys, whoever it takes, If we need to call upon Washington to send federal agency support here, then we're going to do that, but we are not going to allow citizens to be terrorized in any part of Minneapolis ever. It is a part of their constitutional rights that they shall remain free and that they shall be afforded the protection of the police department, and this group of citizens is not being afforded the protection of the police department because of weak command staff and because of the voluntary disavowment and the voluntary walking away of this protection by the chief of police in Minneapolis. He has not navigated this well. And Rich Stanek, you got voted out of office because you didn't navigate well. Your reign there is over. You go sit down and lay by your dish. This is not your business because you don't live there. And until you go step foot down there and tell me that this is not impeccably dangerous for the citizens there, then you have no idea what you're talking about. So go back to Minnetonka or to Edina or to wherever your elitist ass lives and go write for some network out in New York like the Times, because they'll publish that bullshit and people will drink your Kool-Aid.
Boom. You got to think that people are calling too. These folks got to be calling the police.
They are. And according to the report, the police are going down there and then they're being confronted by these angry mobs. They're being confronted, making it impossible for the police. The police are actually saying on the radio and writing in internal reports that they can't go down here without a physical altercation or without escalating things, that the police are now escalating things. Well, yes, that's what police do. And this needs to be met with superior force, period. Force is in numbers, force is in weaponry. These people down here need to be removed. So if they're peaceful like they're claiming to be, then they will have no problems with the police coming down there and saying, all right, that's it. It's time to go. We're reopening this city. We're reopening this zone, and we're giving these people that live here the freedom that they deserve. It's insane to think that city officials, including the mayor, city council, and the police chief, along with people like Rich Stanek and all of the brilliance of his consulting, it's really hard to believe that these people are allowing this to happen to these citizens in America. In the United States of America, these people are being held hostage and they're being made to pay their own alleyway to leave their homes in order to go to work. It's a travesty, it's a damn shame, and this blood is on the hands of all of those people that I just mentioned, Rich.
Yeah, and so when these folks finally decided they've had enough and they attempt to take their street back, and hopefully they're successful, and people are hurt, property is damaged, maybe people even killed, these citizens are going to be the ones that are charged and put in jail.
You mean the ones that stick up for themselves?
Yes, absolutely. It's ridiculous, and I guess I'm not going to say what I would or wouldn't do because I'm not in the situation, and I get super frustrated when people go, well, I would be doing this and blah, blah, blah. But I would find it very hard to just sit by and pay some asshole to leave my driveway.
We're taking a look at some of the footage from the special report that was done by this, and I did confirm it was KSTP Channel 5, so if you want to see it, you can just go to their website, I'm sure, or you can look it up on YouTube. But the guy that you're looking at on the screen right now was the victim of this violent assault. And what happened is, again, this is part of the extortion where these guys go in there, and it's not only residents, but it's businesses. And they have a list of 24 demands. I have not seen the list. I do want to see that. But here's this guy coming in here, and he's demanding at the desk of this business owner, he's saying, you give us money every day or you're going to be met with violence, and you're going to pay for it. And he leaves, he walks out after shoving a bunch of paperwork off of his desk and destroying his desk. He walks outside, and when the business owner then in turn goes outside, this guy comes back and violently assaults him. He broke his eyes, he broke his head, he had concussions, he had all kinds of different things that happened to him. He could have died there. He stomped on this guy's face multiple times before leaving, and then the next day or within a couple of days, he came back with an assault rifle. And if you're watching this, I just want to caution you because this is coming up to the part now where it gets pretty violent. But and I'm going to give it a second here before we go back to that, but here's this assault. Look at this. He just bludgeons this guy, and then before he leaves, bang, stomps on his head, and then takes off and goes the other way. You're seeing pictures now here of the end result of that assault on this victim, and these people down here who are claiming to be so peaceful, they have a list of 24 demands that they've given the mayor, and they claim to be in direct contact with the mayor's office. And they're going to, if these demands are not met, they're not going to leave. They said that one of these demands has been met. One of these conditions for their dismissal from this area has been met. But until all 24 are, they're refusing to go. Well, you know what I say to your refusal? You're under arrest. You're being asked to leave. You're being given a lawful order to leave this area. This is the city of Minneapolis, and you are now going to leave.
I want to know why. I just want to know why anybody thinks that is okay. I'm at a loss for words, bro. I really am.
I see that.
It's super frustrating. And this has no longer anything to do with George Floyd. Nothing. They're not setting up autonomous zones because there's systemic racism in the police department. Bullshit. This has now turned into a way for me to get free shit, to do what I want, destroy the place. That has nothing to do. This is certainly not a way to cure the problem of systemic racism and racial profiling. If anything, it's gonna make it worse.
Absolutely. And we were just watching on the screen while you were talking, Richard, some of the highlighted excerpts from the internal reporting that's been done by the Minneapolis Police Department, where they're saying that they can't get in here with EMS and that they're being confronted by people videotaping and large crowds of people that are intimidating them and pushing them out. And this was when they went to this auto body shop to try to help this victim who was beaten savagely by this criminal anarchist who claims to be either Antifa or Black Lives Matter, or maybe claims allegiance to none of them. But the fact remains is that this woman right here who says that everything is peaceful is a liar. There's videotape of this guy being savagely beaten and assaulted. Here's more videotape of the guy coming back with a baseball bat and threatening the owner of this business once again. And this is going to continue to happen until the police step up and say enough is enough. And the police themselves, the officers, given the appropriate amount of support, would have no problems going in here and cleaning up shop. I guarantee you they're itching. They want to go in here because they care about the community and they care about the citizens that they protect. There has never been a Minneapolis cop that I have ever met who has said that they love beating people up, and this is the guy right here that's been arrested in those assaults. I'm just showing his picture on the screen there. And so there's never been a Minneapolis cop that I've ever met that I truly believe doesn't care about the community that they police. And they want to go down here and they want to take care of this stuff. They want to help guys like this. They want to help victims that are down there being extorted, but they are not being permitted to do so because of their command staff, because of the mayor, because of the city council, who then, by the way, issues a statement the other day saying, "Where's the police?" On June 26th, you were out here saying, F the police, F12, defund the police, get rid of the police. The problem is the police. The only reason anybody's unsafe is because of racist police officers. And then on September 15th, just the other day, you're saying, people are getting violently assaulted down here. There's 50 gunshots being reported in one day. Where are the police? The hypocrisy is astounding.
You know what's really astounding is that these people were elected into office to counsel their wards, right, of the city of Minneapolis. And none of these idiots thought that this was going to happen. Did they really think that, all right, we're going to get rid of the police and we're going to police ourselves and everybody's going to get along and everything's going to be great? You can't be that stupid. They've all must be touched.
This is calculated. These are absolutely calculated moves and decisions that are being made not only by these people that are down there, but I would not be surprised, and believe me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but in the first half we talked about people being manufactured. We talked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, NSYNC, and the Backstreet Boys. There's no difference between them, Barack Obama, and now Joe Biden, who's not pulling his own strings, by the way. He is being controlled by a group of people who have a narrative, and this lady right here and these people down here are the ones that are carrying out the narrative that liberal progressive radicals want to introduce into these major cities. Total anarchy prior to the November 3rd elections to try to secure votes, to try to intimidate people. Who's going down to vote in this zone? Who's going down to support President Donald Trump in an area like this? Nobody can, and that is the real fascism. That is the real voter suppression. Rich, your final words of the day.
All you pussies in this autonomous zone can firmly wrap your lips around my asshole and suck. Screw you. It's bullshit. Get out of there.
Until tomorrow at 4 o'clock, here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. I'm sorry about Richard's language.
Yeah.
My mom watches this show. Remember to fly low and avoid the radar. And listen, one day they're going to come for the car. And when they do, save the radio!
Get to know them. Grow to love them. Love to hate them. Stewie and Richie. PC Radio.